You've felt it for years. The invisible hand, the pressure behind your choices, the tension that lives in your shoulders, the quiet voice that says, "Don't say that. Don't do that. Be good. Be safe. Be who they want you to be." But deep inside, there's another voice, quieter, older, more dangerous, and far more honest. This isn't me. Tonight, we're going to listen to that voice. Not the one shaped by fear, but the one shaped by truth. And we're going to follow the work of Carl Jung to understand how control seeps into the psyche, and more importantly, how to set yourself free. Not someday, not eventually, but now, quietly, from the inside out. Control doesn't always look like domination. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Jung believed we are not as free as we think, that most people live inside prisons they've never even noticed, not built by others, but built by their own unconscious minds. Parents, religion, society, rejection, fear, all poured into you before you were old enough to ask, "Is this really mine?" Jung called it the collective unconscious, the shared structure of expectation and myth that shapes how we act, what we fear, what we pursue. If you don't confront it, it will live your life for you, silently, skillfully, completely. Every child learns a trick, become who they want, and maybe you'll be safe. Jung called this trick the persona, the mask you wear to survive the world, the obedient son, the perfect student, the quiet partner, the strong one, the funny one, the one who never asks for anything. It works, for a while, but then you notice you're still being controlled, not by others, but by the mask itself. And the more you live through it, the more distant your real self becomes. Your soul whispers, "This isn't me." But the mask says, "If you drop me, you'll be alone." Here is Jung's deepest truth. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The control we fear from others often lives inside of us, in the shadow, the parts of ourselves we were taught to hide. Your anger, your desire, your defiance, your truth, we bury these things. We say that's not who I am, but it is. It's the part of you they couldn't control, so they taught you to fear it. And now you fear yourself. You think you're strong because you hold it together, because you don't lash out, because you keep smiling. But Jung reminds us, repression is not strength. It's silence. It's avoidance. It's an unconscious contract with control. Real strength is integration, looking at the part of you that's wild and saying you are not the enemy. You are mine. Let's walk together. When you integrate your shadow, you stop being a puppet. You stop reacting. You start choosing. And that is freedom. You want to be free? Then go to the place you've been avoiding. Jung believed in the alchemical idea. What wounds you also heals you. The thing you fear most is the door to your liberation. You fear confrontation, then truth is your path. You fear abandonment, then self-trust is your medicine. You fear not being loved, then radical honesty is your cure. The wound isn't the end, it's the beginning. The way out is not escape, but transformation. There is a word Jung used again and again, a word at the heart of all his work, individuation. It means becoming yourself, fully, without apology, without compromise. It's not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It's not selfishness. It's not a middle finger to the world. It's clarity. It's when you know this is who I am. This is what I believe. This is how I choose to live. And suddenly, they can't control you anymore. Not because you fight them, but because you don't need them. You've become whole. There's something strange about life. You think you're meeting different people, but over and over again you find yourself in the same situations, feeling the same emotions, triggered in the same ways, controlled by the same patterns. Jung explains this through one of his most powerful ideas, projection. You don't just see the world as it is, you see it as you are. When parts of your psyche remain unconscious, you project them outward. You see them in others. The need for validation, the fear of rejection, the craving for someone to save you. You think it's about them, but it's always about you. You keep attracting the same people because they carry the parts of you you've disowned. And until you reclaim those parts, you will remain stuck, not because you're weak, but because your unconscious is asking, are you ready to see the truth? Liberation sounds beautiful, but in Jung's eyes, it's not without cost, because when you become free, truly free, you will be misunderstood. The world does not know what to do with people who no longer need approval, who don't perform, who don't flatter, who don't chase. People who have stepped outside the invisible rules of the collective. They may call you difficult, selfish, weird, detached, eccentric. But Jung knew these are signs you are healing. You're no longer code switching to fit someone else's idea of you. You're no longer buying your safety through silence. You've stepped into your own orbit. And yes, it's lonelier, but it's also lighter and real. Because for the first time, you're not being controlled. You're being yourself. Freedom is found in the stillness. Asterisk, asterisk. There's a myth that freedom is loud, that it looks like breaking rules or shouting no. But Jung believed the real freedom happens in silence. It's not rebellion, it's presence. It's the moment you choose not to react. The moment you feel fear rise, but you don't run. The moment someone tries to control you and you simply smile. You've stopped needing to fight, because you're no longer playing their game. You are centered, anchored, rooted in something deeper. That's the kind of freedom no one can take from you, because it doesn't come from defiance. It comes from understanding. There's a moment in every spiritual journey where the pain, the confusion, the loss, all come together. And suddenly you see the pattern. You weren't being punished, you were being awakened. Each person who tried to control you was a mirror, each wound a teacher, each fear a doorway. And now you stand at the threshold of who you've always been. You don't need their permission. You don't need their validation. You don't need their love, because you've remembered your own. Jung called this the moment of wholeness, when the self is no longer fragmented, when the shadow is integrated, when the unconscious becomes conscious. You are no longer ruled by what lies beneath. You've met it, embraced it, brought it into the light. You are free, not someday, not if everything goes right, but now, because the work is done within you. And that's where freedom lives, forever. You want to be loved, but somewhere along the way, love became confused with something else. Obedience, approval, performance, pleasure given at the cost of your own needs. It started early. The way you were praised when you were quiet, the way they withdrew when you were too much, the way affection became a reward, not a birthright. Jung understood this distortion, that when the psyche is shaped by conditional love, you begin to internalize control as connection. You mistake being wanted for being safe. You mistake being chosen for being understood. And so you shrink. You overthink. You betray your own boundaries, just to avoid abandonment. But here's the truth. If love requires the death of your authenticity, it is not love. It is control. To free yourself, you must unlearn what love felt like, and begin to discover what love really is. Acceptance, stillness, freedom. There is a quiet revolution that begins the moment you stop chasing validation. You no longer wait for them to understand you. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to be enough. You no longer twist yourself into a version they can digest. Jung said that individuation, the path to self, requires you to detach from the need to be chosen. Why? Because as long as you are seeking the gaze of another, you are still being controlled, not directly, but through your own longing. You become a puppet to your hope. But when you stop chasing it, when you sit in the silence and feel the ache of being unseen, something shifts. You realize you are still whole, even in the absence of applause, even when nobody claps, even when no one comes to save you. And from that moment on, your freedom becomes permanent. We often think power means the ability to influence others, to dominate, to be untouchable. to never need anyone. But Jung pointed to a different kind of power, one that is internal, subtle, soft, consciousness. When you are conscious, aware of your patterns, your desires, your wounds and your projections, you stop being manipulated by those who are not. You stop being triggered. You stop being drained. You stop being reactive. Consciousness gives you the ability to pause before you respond, to choose clarity over chaos, to see things as they are, not as your trauma has painted them. This kind of power doesn't look like much from the outside, but it is the root of freedom, because you are no longer controlled by anything that lives in the dark. You have turned the light on, and that light lives inside you now. At first, the world you wake up in after individuation can feel empty. No more masks, no more games, no more performance. What's left? Silence, stillness, a sense of space. But over time, that space begins to bloom. The inner world you had abandoned, the part of you that dreamed, that created, that imagined, comes back. You begin to enjoy your own company again. You become fascinated by your own thoughts. You build rituals, create meaning, find beauty in the small, the quiet, the real. You no longer need to escape into others, because you've returned home to yourself. And that is the final gift of freedom. You are enough, not in a way that needs to be proven, but in a way that is simply true.